If you want your kid to work harder at their sport, here are a couple tips to make that happen. First thing though, I really want to impress on you. Sports are not here just for achievement. Like getting to play college sports or pro sports is not really the goal. It's not going to change much. And look, I learned this as a former pro myself and a D1 player myself. When you're in the real world, no one cares. They only care if I treat them well. If I'm a nice person to someone new that I meet and I seem like a good guy and like, you know, I treat people with respect, and then they learn that I play pro baseball, cool. Like Dan's a nice guy and he was like a really good athlete. Other than that, like no one cares. If you're a jerk to people, it doesn't matter. I learned so many amazing life skills. I get to travel all over. I get to meet all these amazing people, and I get to compete and do the thing that I loved, which is really central to who I am. Like throwing a ball and swinging a bat is like, it makes me feel whole in a way that I have a tough time really understanding. But that's why I played sports. I played because I loved it and I loved competing. Whether I had ended up playing not D1 but played D3, like it wouldn't have really mattered in the end. So I just want you to understand that as a parent. When you want your kids to work harder, it's typically because you see potential in them that they're not tapping into, right? That's typically the most common reason that I see. Or maybe you wish your parent had pushed you more and because you knew that you had more potential and that your career fizzled out for reasons that if someone else had held you to account, that maybe you could have gone farther and you would have really liked to play college sports. You would have thought you had the potential to do this or that. So there's a lot of regret that people try to pass on in this way. But here's the thing. If you are pushing your kids, and this term push is really vague, I think you can push people in a nice way. But most of the time, push is a negatively connotated term. Like, oh, that kid's dad pushes him way too hard. Not like, oh, that mom really pushes her daughter for success. It's just like not the way we use that term. So don't push your kids, encourage your kids. Encourage them. And then look, they're going to do what they want to do. I don't know that you're going to force them into becoming hardworking people. You can instill the traits of discipline and you show them what's going on. And that's what we're going to talk about here. But like, if you're pushing your kids, you're going to build resentment. You're going to make them feel like their sport is their job. And it's going to feel like work. And they're going to eventually go play video games or do something else that allows them to feel free and easy, which is how people want to spend their free time. I wanted to spend my free time playing baseball. It was the thing that I loved to do. But if it felt hard and it wasn't enjoyable, I would have found something else to do with my time. And my parents personally were okay with me doing whatever made me happy. So just something to keep in your back pocket. So as far as tips to actually help your kids work harder, here's a couple ways I think you should go about it. Number one, help them love the sport. Be as involved as you can as far as like watching it on TV with them. Take them to a local game, even just like the local high school team or local college team. Go watch more volleyball or baseball or softball or whatever it is. Get them to love it. When you go practice with them, bring a boom box, make it fun. Bring like, a Snickers bar and some snacks and like make it feel like special fun time when they're out with mom or dad working on their sport. The more you can help them love it. And look, you don't have to make it like, oh, they're only going to practice if I make it like the most fun thing ever. But like, no, make it something that is special to them. I feel like everyone has some of those moments, whether it's just like, oh, we got ice cream after games like once a week. That's just like maybe enough for a lot of kids to make it feel special, where it builds this good, happy, glowy feeling about their sport, rather than like when parents are really hard on their kids and it's like, okay, do you want to go hit in the batting cage for an hour? Well, I know that my dad's going to yell at me a bunch when we do that because it needs to be better. And that's when kids really drop off. And then you don't have the relationship with your kid. In the end, you look back and you have these icky feelings about how often my mom or dad yelled at me about my swing, rather than like the quality time that we shared together. So just think, as a general rule, when you engage with your kid about their sport, are you helping them love it more, or are you helping them despise it more? That's a good metric to look at it. Number two, models. Who can model the behavior that you want in your sport? One great example, watch The Last Dance with Michael Jordan. Now, he was kind of a tough teammate. Like, he was hard on his teammates at a lot of times, but Michael Jordan was a super hard worker to sport. He was super competitive. He really wanted to win. Those are good traits for a kid to pick up from watching Michael Jordan, right? Maybe you don't want him to pick up like some of like the criticism that he put on his teammates, but I loved watching The Last Dance because it made me want to be more competitive, even as a retired athlete. Watch like documentaries about like Venus and Serena Williams. Like, they're incredible. They're world-class athletes. There are so many things you can find on all these different Olympic athletes. There's new documentaries coming out all the time. Find people who model the behavior that you want, which is dedicated, highly disciplined people who also really love what they're doing. Get them to meet these people. Again, go to the local high school and college games. Anyone who's above the level that your kid at is going to be a good role model for them in demonstrating the hard work that it takes and the discipline that it takes, and also the physical skills they have to build and the body that they have to build to be good at their sport. So put them in front of people who are going to impact and say, wow, like, I want to be a D1 volleyball player, and look at her. She's 6 foot and she's well built and she's clearly very disciplined and practices hard. Like, okay, that's a light bulb moment for a young girl who wants to be a good volleyball player, to see someone like that in person rather than just hearing it from their mom and dad. And number 3, put them in a position to have moments where, again, that light bulb really flips on and things change. For me, my light bulb moment was when a college coach came to watch me and he offered me a scholarship and said, you might never be good enough to see the field, but we'll give you a spot with no money. And that was a big moment that changed everything for me. But when I was younger, there were lots of other moments where I had to show up and make a really difficult team with lots of other players who were as good as me. And that really like stepped me up, where I was like, I barely made this team. I really need to start working harder to like make my high school varsity team. Put your kids in positions where they're going to have to really like take one side of the fork in the road. And unfortunately, as a parent, those are scary moments for you, because you're afraid, well, what if my kid gets cut or they don't do well at this hard challenge and now they want to give up? You can't control that. You can't pave their entire road for them. So you're going to have to put them in positions where they're going to be beaten down or left failing at their sport. And then they've got to pick themselves up and change things and do better. A lot of times injuries are a good source for players to start to work harder. No one wants their kid to get injured. But a lot of times, if they do have something happen to them, maybe they roll their ankle, they have a little shoulder pain for the first time, as a parent, that's actually like something, hey, it wasn't a catastrophic injury, and this is probably going to give my son or my daughter like the kick in the pants to start working a little harder. Those things end up being a really big positive. They always were for me when I had more minor injuries, that they change your perspective about how much you love your sport, missing it for the first time, and the amount of discipline and hard work it takes to stay on the field. So I think it's important that you try to put your kids in positions to either fail or grow from failure. And those are the big moments that can really impact them in the future. So it's not easy to get your kids to work harder, but pushing them, berating them, you don't want to create resentment and you don't want to create a negative feeling with them in their sport. So I think you have to really tread lightly about insisting that they go practice and just being there for them. Encourage them to practice. Offer to go practice with them. Make it fun so they want to do it. And in general, they should only be playing a sport that they love. And if they don't really love their sport and they don't want to go practice, that should be telling for you as a parent as well. Maybe they haven't found the right sport that really fits them yet if they're still pretty young. Maybe like tennis isn't quite what their thing. Maybe golf isn't quite their thing. Maybe baseball's not quite their thing. And they still need to keep sampling and trying other sports to see what sticks the best. Because ultimately, very few athletes go on to play in college. And so the biggest thing, if they're going to have this journey from 8 to 18 and be done after high school, is, you want them to love it and enjoy it and develop healthy habits and learn leadership traits and hard work and discipline, those things that come along for the ride. And so ultimately, it doesn't really matter what sport they pick, as long as they're happy and they want to stick with it and get some of those benefits of camaraderie and all the lessons that they'll learn. So hopefully this video was helpful. It's tough raising kids. I'm not here to tell you how to raise your kids, but I am here to give you some tips and some guidance along the way. Because I've seen, as a coach and a baseball academy owner, I've seen a lot of really rough relationships between parents and kids that I was like, man, I feel sorry for that young man or sorry for that young girl, that's what she's stuck with. That her dad or her mom is just berating her constantly and she never feels good enough and is just getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And clearly none of them are having fun. And that's what you want to avoid. You want to look back on this whole journey and say, we got a lot of really good quality time together. My son or my daughter enjoyed it and I enjoyed it. And it was good bonding time and something special that we did for this period of time in our lives.